drowning in emotion when you sent peace to my ocean, and they tried to separate us. And I don't know what they think they can do here. Like the wise men in the Bible, you gave me skills for my survival.
Do you guys know the difference between surviving and overcoming? Like anyone? Okay. When I think of surviving, any of you guys watch Survivor at all? Yeah? Okay. And on Survivor, do you see how people have alliances? They think of like tactics on how they're gonna win the whole game show and everything. Some people become more ruthless in order to make sure that they win. Some people become manipulative. Each person has their way of surviving, right? And at the time, it seems wonderful because that's their way of making it to the end of something. Well, when I think about childhood sexual abuse, when you're a little kid and you go through that, you develop coping mechanisms that help you to survive. And the thing about that is those coping mechanisms are great for when you're little. You might disappear, create a different alternate universe in your head to get through it. You might pretend you're someone else. But as you grow older, you don't really let go of those coping mechanisms. So in a sense, you're still surviving. It's like you're still going through a war and your village is being invaded and you're hiding. Or sometimes you come out and you're a soldier and you're fighting all the time. And sometimes you don't know when it's a good time to stop fighting, so everything is a fight to you. Somebody might say something to you and they might have meant it in the best way and you'll take it the wrong way, and then you'll fight with them over it. Somebody will do something and they'll mean the best intentions, you'll take it the wrong way. So it's like you walk through this world like a wounded soul. And so when I made my CD, Wounded Soul, it was to express that. So when you see the first part of the CD, when you listen to the first, it's about all the things that happen in a home that's rippled, like damaged by domestic violence. There might be physical abuse, there might be sexual abuse, there might be verbal, but it's all the things that happen. Then I did one on when I was the boogeyman in the closet. Now, inside the closet, there's this monster. And you want to talk about it, but you can't. And sometimes that monster will be a boyfriend, a husband, somebody that is in your immediate family. I had a friend when I was growing up in my 20s. She was living with someone, and he was very violent. So he was like the boogeyman in her closet. And when I tried to help her to get out of that situation, she was afraid to leave. So I wrote that song in memory of her. That whole CD side expresses everything that I went through as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, things I saw in other people's homes that I knew, and things I saw in my own family. And I saw those things so much that they became normal to me. I lived in fear for years in the way I ran my relationships with other people. I went through a lot of bad relationships where I trusted people too quickly and gave up too much too quickly and got hurt and taken advantage of. So it was kind of like the abuse happened all over again. It mattered to anyone, so I figured whatever I had left, I could give that away. I didn't have much left because people had taken so much from me, whether it be friends or boyfriends or even other adults that thought they were helping. So I continued just letting people take until there was nothing, and I became numb and dead inside. And then when I had boundaries up to protect myself, my boundaries were too rigid, where I wouldn't let people in. If I let people in, I always thought that they were gonna let me down. When I was in foster care, I had different foster parents who also wanted to help kids, but some of them didn't know how to handle kids that had gone through abuse. So for them, they decided that it was better not to talk about it. And anytime I wanted to talk about these feelings that were bubbling up inside of me, full with anger and rage and isolation, they just wanted me to push it aside. So I took it in, and I learned to survive without talking about it. This led me to smoking when I turned about 26. And I remember being at home and feeling very suicidal and thinking, no one gets me. No matter how much I try to explain to people who I am as a person, they see me so differently. I didn't know part of it was I was expressing myself in a way that was negative. And so I just started to hate. I started to hate people around me that talked about me badly because they didn't see the real me. I started to hate myself because I couldn't express truly who I was and who I thought I could be. I published a book, and that seemed like my victory, my very first book. It was full of anger and rage, and at the time I thought that was the best way to have my voice heard. And I'm not saying I regret expressing myself, but I just wish I had not written certain poems. So anyways, this brought new people into my life who saw I was still surviving, and they had their own issues. And when you get 2 people who are wounded or 3 people that are wounded, and you guys all hang out, it seems like a great family. But then when things happen, it starts to bring out the best or worst in people. So I started to see that. I got into the music industry, and I had a friend that I trusted, and she had wounds too. And at the time, I couldn't see that she was wounded because I was too busy seeing how broken I was. That's, again, surviving. You don't see everything around you clearly. You just see yourself. And you're locked in this box of just seeing how broken you are. Anyways, that got worse. I found myself always running back to the Bible and reading it and not understanding it because part of me didn't want to understand, but I thought if I opened it and at least read it, I'd be comforted. And I kept on that way. I started going out clubbing all the time. I did lots of things that I'm not proud of. But where I came to my breaking point is when my mother stopped talking to me years later. My friends had actually all left me, and I was living in my own apartment and going to my job that I hated. I was bipolar at this time because that's what my doctor told me I was, and I was taking pills for that. And I was always having nightmares, and I couldn't deal with it, and I was always fighting within myself. Now, when I think of overcoming, overcoming is different. I started going to the Laurel Center. I met other women who'd been through what I went through, and we'd have sharing circles. And there'd be women from all sorts of backgrounds, all walks of life, and we'd all share things that we used to go to church every Sunday. It was a thing that my mom made us do from all the day school. And I remember having this dream once where there were 2 monsters, and they were trying to get me. And I remember singing, "Jesus Loves Me." And I woke up singing that song so I could get out of my nightmare. And I thought, wow, that song really helped me out of my nightmare. I wonder if it'll help me out of this real nightmare that I'm living in. So I started to read the Bible. And this time when I opened it, I started to understand what was in it. I knew people thought whatever they thought about God. But I wasn't going to listen to that. I was going to try and figure him out for myself. And then as I read it, I started to understand it wasn't about me figuring him out for myself. It was for him to show me himself. Jesus did it for me because he was abused badly and beaten and broken and isolated and abandoned, and he forgave. And he did it even though he did nothing wrong. He was innocent. So for me, that registered that I was innocent, and I was taken advantage of, and I was robbed, and I was left to suffer. And then I started thinking about those people who had taken advantage of me when I was little, and I didn't know any better. So as time went on, I went from just surviving to where I felt like I was overcoming things, where things didn't have me under them anymore. I was able to look down on things and understand things. For years, I was mad at my mom. I blamed her for everything that ever happened.
I see the tears that you cry. I see the pain